Right. A little short on space today. Let's see what I can do here. Is everybody ready? Okay. Thank you all for being here today. This is the DA's office regular weekly community press conference, but this is not an ordinary week. This is actually a very, very special and very important week. And that is the main topic that we will be discussing today, which is Crime Victims' Rights Week. We are here to highlight the work of local advocates and their organizations, which is so important all the time, but it's especially important in times like these, when we have so many shootings and we have so many homicides. We will begin, as we always do. I'm going to acknowledge some of the wonderful people who are here, and then we're going to go through some data and some specific cases that have occurred during the last week in relation to gun violence. But we will then move into our main topic. And I'm delighted to be joined by so many important advocates and people who do such important work around supporting victims. We were just in the back for a minute and we were talking about some of the big ideas, some of the big themes. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder. That wouldn't be the right thing to do. But I do want to say that one of the people who was here, Natasha McGlynn, said, we are a community. There is no community without unity. Another person who's here spoke about embracing all victims, including through language access. I believe that was Jessica Quiroz from Concilio who said that. And there was also discussion about there being justice for all victims. And by all victims, we are talking about all victims of violence, whether that prosecution ever occurs, whether there are reasons why the prosecution may succeed or not. The bottom line is a victim requires support, a victim requires justice. And only part of that is what happens in court. So much of that is what the people who are standing here with me do every day out of court. I'm joined today by First Assistant Carolyn Engel-Temin, who is seated to my left. We also have Assistant District Attorney Deborah Watson-Stokes, who is a senior advisor for both professional development and special projects. Special among those special projects are projects related to gun violence. And ADA Watson-Stokes has spent much of her career working specifically on homicide cases and has great familiarity with the needs and the difficulties and the challenges that victims, co-victims, survivors face. We have Reverend Myra Maxwell, who is the Executive Director for DAO Victim Support Services Division. She is in charge of our victim witness services, and she is also in charge of CARES, meaning she supervises Melanie Nelson, who supervises CARES, which provides specialized services during the first 45 days to the families of victims of homicide. I also would be remiss if I did not acknowledge Melanie Nelson, who's not actually here because she's in Harrisburg, where she's doing the same thing that we are doing here. She is lifting up the importance of work around victims and the importance of this week on behalf of the DA's office at the state capitol. We have with us Heather Arias, co-chair of the Philadelphia Coalition for Victim Advocacy, also known as PCVA. Natasha McGlynn is here, the Executive Director of AVP, the Anti-Violence Partnerships. We have Terry Parker and James Scarborough, who are here on behalf of Victim Services of South Philadelphia. Vicki Melvin is here, Associate Director of the Philadelphia Children's Alliance. And even though I already mentioned her, I'll mention her again. Jessica Quiros is here from Concilio. Jessica Quiros at one point was an intern in the DA's office in our CARES unit, and she is now doing wonderful work at Concilio. I do want to acknowledge, even though he's not here, the Reverend W. Lonnie Herndon, senior pastor of this church, our host, the Church of Christian Compassion, who has been a friend to justice and a friend to this office for quite some time. I'm going to turn briefly to the data and specifics around gun violence during the last week. There were 10 homicides and 27 non-fatal shootings in Philadelphia last week. The 10 homicides are about average for how terrible it has been, and it has been terrible during this pandemic. We see approximately 1.5 homicides per day during the pandemic period, going all the way back to around March of 2020. And 1.5 times 7 days is 10.5. This was 10 homicides last week. So sadly, it is about average for that terrible period of time in this gun violence crisis. There were 85 cases open involving either guns or gun violence, so understand that's both gun possession and it's actual shootings or other forms of violence committed with guns. Cash bail failed us again. The median cash bail set for possession of guns was $100,000. We ordinarily ask for almost 10 times that in most cases. And if we look at people who were held for violent gun offenses, there are two categories. One is people held without bail because they're charged with first-degree murder, which is typical. That is a small group. But the rest of them, people who are not charged with first-degree murder, had an average median cash bail set at $225,000. That is less than a fourth of what the DA's office has consistently been requesting ever since the pandemic started. Overall, there were 132 gun-related incidents reported to the Philadelphia Police Department last week. There were 85 arrests made by the Philadelphia Police Department. Among those arrests, there were 85 cases opened by the District Attorney's Office. I do want to point to a couple of specific shootings. The first of two that I want to talk about is a homicide incident which occurred on Friday, April the 22nd at about 4:05 p.m. on the 2000 block of Pickwick Street in the 24th Police District. An approximately 38-year-old black male was shot twice in the head. He was pronounced on the scene. 2 arrests have been made by PPD, and a gun was recovered. However, understand this, the 2 arrests were not of the person who shot and killed the victim here. The 2 arrests were of people who were with the victim, pulled out guns, and fired those guns at the perpetrator of the murder. And they have to do with illegal weapons possession on the part of those 2 individuals. So this investigation remains ongoing. It is essential that we're able to determine exactly who it is perpetrated this crime and bring that person to justice. Anybody with information should contact the Philadelphia Police Department's Shooting Investigation Group at 215-686-8270. The 2 companions of the man who was shot and killed received $500,000 bail each for the crimes with which they are charged. Second and final shooting incident that we will discuss. This is a non-fatal double shooting that occurred on Saturday, April the 23rd at about 2:34 p.m. on the 1700 block of St. Paul Street in the 39th District. Victim number 1 and 2 are both 16-year-old black males. Victim number 1 was shot once in the buttock, transported to Einstein Medical Center where he was listed in critical but stable condition. Victim number 2, an approximately 16-year-old black male, as I said, was shot multiple times throughout the body. He was transported to Temple and listed in critical but stable condition. An arrest has been made. It was made almost immediately. In this particular instance, the victim was able to tell the police upon their arrival who had shot him and where to find the shooter. We do have more details on this case, but let me say this, the investigation remains ongoing. Anyone with information should contact PPD's Shooting Investigation Group at 215-686-8270. The defendant was charged and arraigned, and the DAO requested $1 million. The bail was set at $400,000 in that case. You know, let me be clear once again for anybody who's not following closely, we are really good at getting convictions of people who shoot people. When they are caught, we are really good at getting those convictions. Anyone who is thinking of settling their dispute or working out their anger or their frustration with a gun is going to be working all of that out inside of a jail cell for a very, very long time. Please, anyone around you who looks like they might do anything of this type, do everything you can to stop it. Anyone who is thinking about this, understand the consequences are real, and they are coming for you once you are caught by the Philadelphia police. And now it is my pleasure to turn to our main topic today, which is the observation of Crime Victims' Rights Week and the work of local advocates and their organizations. I must tell you, I don't know that there's anything more important that a prosecutor can do than to try to prevent the next victimization. And what is crucial to preventing the next victimization is addressing the needs of victims when they happen. I will not go into the hurt people speech. We all know it, and we all know it because it's true. But the work that is done to help victims is also public safety work, because when victims' trauma is not addressed, it can work itself out in ways that are very destructive for them and for others. So the work being done here is God's work. Let me do this. There's some other things that I have to say, but honestly, I think the people who need to be elevated, lifted up here, the people who need a little bit of sunshine and deserve it, are standing with me. We have with us the following people who will be given an opportunity to speak, and I truly look forward to what they will say. I'm not going to get up in between their comments because nobody needs to see me again. So if you'll pay attention to the order, please, so that you know when to come up, that would be great. First, we're going to hear from Natasha McGlynn, Executive Director of AVP, the Anti-Violence Partnerships of Philadelphia. Then from Heather Arias, Co-Chair of the Philadelphia Coalition for Victim Advocacy, also known as PCVA. We're going to be hearing from Terry Parker and James Scarborough, Victim Services of South Philadelphia. Then Jessica Quiros from Concilio. Vicki Melvin will be here on behalf of the Philadelphia Children's Alliance. And we will hear finally from Myra Maxwell, who is our Executive Director of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division, who formerly was in charge of CARES, and then turned that over to Melanie Nelson, who, as I said, is now working under the supervision of Myra Maxwell, literally on the steps of the Capitol in Harrisburg right now to celebrate this important week. So without further ado, let us start with Natasha McGlynn.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Natasha Daniela Jalima McGlynn. I'm the Executive Director of the Anti-Violence Partnership of Philadelphia, or AVP. Acronyms are our friends when words are very long. Since 1983, AVP has been serving victims of violence and co-victims of homicide in Philadelphia. We serve approximately 3,000 children, youth, and adults and families per year. We provide an array of different support services that really reflects our approach. We take a holistic, integrated approach to victimization. One size does not fit all. And so we provide immediate support services in the immediate aftermath of violence. And then we also provide grief counseling, trauma therapy. We partner with over 40 schools throughout Philadelphia, going into the schools and working with the children, providing individual and group counseling. We also, because our partnership is in our name, we have many partners throughout the city. And I apologize, actually. It's very difficult for me to be up here. This morning, I found out that a close friend and former colleague of mine was murdered here in Philly. And so I'm I apologize again for my presentation. On that note, the work is really hard, and violence, it discriminates against no one. It is affecting everyone in this city. And as our DA Krasner said, we can't do the work unless we are a community. And I'm sorry to be cheesy, there is no community unless you have unity. And so we are very grateful and blessed and honored to be standing here before you all. Those are our partners. We are one of 7 victim service agencies. We are one of many, many individuals, organizations, leaders that are doing this type of work. I don't want to steal the thunder. I'm joined here today by my Director of Victim Services, Heather Arias, who will be sharing some information about what is AVP doing in the coming weeks. But I do want to highlight an event that is happening in our city on May 7th, Saturday, May 7th. It is a day of serenity, and AVP is joining many different organizations, multi-faith organizations as well. Our city needs to be united right now. We need to be in all of this together. We talk a lot about violence, intervention, and prevention, but what about in the aftermath of violence? What about the trauma and the pain that hurts? That hurts us all. And so there's going to be more information that's going to be posted and shared about this event on AVP social media. Our handle is at AVPPHILA, at AVPPhila. And again, it is on Saturday, May 7th, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 4700 Wyalusing Avenue. Thank you so much for having us.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. My name is Heather Arias. I am the Director of Victim Witness Services with the Anti-Violence Partnership of Philadelphia, but I am also the co-chair of the Philadelphia Coalition for Victim Advocacy, along with my partner, Dr. Reverend Myra Maxwell. We also share the office responsibilities with our Secretary, Elizabeth Delos, and our Treasurer, Michelle Neal. PCVA is a membership consortium of organizations and individuals that provide advocacy and assistance to victims and co-victims and witnesses to crime. Our mission is dedicated to improving and promoting victim rights and the provisions of a full range of high-quality victim services in the city of Philadelphia. PCVA's primary goals are as follows: to provide member agencies with a collective voice that is greater than the voice of any individual agency, program, or individual member in addressing the rights and needs of crime victims. To provide opportunities for concerned citizens, programs, and organizations to exchange information and ideas, support the sharing and utilization of materials and resources, and address emerging issues and policies related to victims of crime. We support initiatives that address the policies, the rights, the needs, and the provision of services to crime victims and witnesses of crime in the city of Philadelphia. We create opportunities for crime victims to feel heard and empowered, as well as to support and recognize the contributions that crime victims and service providers make in the Philadelphia community. To increase public awareness of crime victim issues and the services available for victims, especially those offered by PCVA's member agencies. To identify underserved or unserved victim populations and address service gaps and system problems that affect crime victims. In honor of National Crime Victims' Rights Week, PCVA also has some very important events coming up this week, and we would love for the community's participation. On April 28th at 6:30 p.m., we are hosting our virtual annual PCVA candlelighting ceremony. Please look for more information on our Instagram, PCVA Phila. On April 29th, we'll be hosting our annual PCVA Award Luncheon, where we recognize community stakeholders in the community doing great work. And on that note, I would like to announce some of those award recipients. The Catherine Bacharach Victim Witness Service Award goes to Nuria Orsino. Barbara McPherson Award for law enforcement goes to Detective G. Lamar Stewart. Court Personnel, Janina Knox. Legal Aid Award, Lawrence Smolowitz. Media, KYW's very own Kristen Johansson. Medical Professional, Yolanda Booker. and the Prosecutor Award, Vilma Cubias. Thank you all, everyone in this room, for what you do and your commitment to victim services. It's an absolute honor to serve as the co-chair to this amazing coalition. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Terry Parker, the Youth Victim Advocate at Victim Witness Services of South Philadelphia, and I'm here with my intern,
James Scarborough.
We're here to represent the Philadelphia Coalition for Victim Advocacy. PCVA is a membership coalition of organizations and individuals that provide advocacy, direct services, and assistance to victims and co-victims of crime in Philadelphia. Every year, during Crime Victims' Rights Week, PCVA holds a candle lighting ceremony for those impacted by crime in our city. This year's candle lighting ceremony will be held virtually on Thursday of this week at 6:30 p.m. The ceremony is an opportunity for our community to come together to honor and support all victims and survivors of violence and crime in our community. Guests who join this virtual event have the opportunity to provide us with a photo and some information about those they would like to honor, either beforehand or at the beginning of the ceremony. During the ceremony, PCVA representatives will read the names of those being honored, as well as the names of their loved ones who are there to honor them. This ceremony, which is held yearly, provides a valuable opportunity for those impacted by violence and crime to come together in support of each other as a community. Information about the event, which will be held this Thursday, April 28th at 6:30 p.m., can be found at vwssp.org, where the Zoom link is provided, along with a link to the details for how to share information for honoring loved ones during the ceremony. Thank you for having us here today.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am Jessica Carroll. I'm from Concilio, from the Victim Witness Program Services. I'm currently a victim advocate, and we provide services to the 24th, 25th, and 26th districts of Philadelphia. We serve victims of crime that serve from simple assault to homicide, and we help them with relocation services and emergency funds. I wanted to point out that we have an event that occurs every year on May 14th. In collaboration with Love Shouldn't Hurt, we will have a love run at the Thomas Edison High School from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And if you are interested, please let me know, and I can provide more details on that event. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm from the Philadelphia Children's Alliance, and in a city of about 1.6 million people, the Philadelphia Children's Alliance is the only agency equipped to coordinate the multidisciplinary team response to investigations, treatment, and prosecution for children and their families. We work very closely with the District Attorney's Office, the Philadelphia Sexual Abuse Unit at DHS, as well as the Special Victims Unit for our police department. We also partner with Children's Hospital and St. Christopher's Hospital and many mental health agencies across the city to ensure that children receive trauma-focused treatment. It is important to know that April is also Child Abuse Prevention Month. As you can see, I have on my blue ribbon. We planted pinwheels this month, and we also had a cleanup day, and we were supported in both of those efforts with our neighborhood partners, as well as AVP and Concilio, who are also present today. I want to also mention that on this coming Wednesday is Denim Day. It's an opportunity for all of us to wear denim in support of a young woman who was criticized and for wearing jeans when she was sexually assaulted. So we wear jeans to make the statement that we do not blame victims for things that happen to them. But looking ahead at PCA, every child that comes to our agency leaves with a teddy bear or a stuffed animal, whether they are actually the child who was victimized or a sibling of that child. And so we have our annual fundraiser, which we call the Bear Affair. It's next Thursday, and it occurs at the Link. So that's May the 5th. We are beginning at 6 p.m. All are welcome. If you would like to attend, you can purchase tickets at bearaffair.org. But I also want to implore everyone to follow us on our social media and support child abuse prevention by following us at hashtag It's Your Business Philly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So glad to be back here again. I want to talk a little bit about National Crime Victims' Rights Week, just to share a little bit of information with you all about why this week is so important to the work that we do as victim advocates. Since 1981, National Crime Victims' Rights Week has challenged the nation to confront and remove barriers to achieving justice for all victims. During National Crime Victims' Rights Week, we celebrate the accomplishments of the victims' rights movement and reflect on how far we have come, and victim services and the rights of victims have certainly come a very long way. Each year in April, we have communities that actually lead various events throughout the country to celebrate the observance of National Crime Victims' Rights Week. This year, we will be observed, of course, the April 24th through the 30th, is the rights and access and equity for all victims. This theme underscores the importance of helping crime victims and survivors find their justice. How? By enforcing victims' rights, expanding access to services, and ensuring equity and inclusion for all. As the DA mentioned earlier, when we talked about language access and unity in the community and all of these things, this is very important to the work that we all do. The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office Victim Support Services Division values the safety and well-being of all victims, witnesses, co-victims, survivors, co-survivors, families. We're committed to engaging and empowering and encouraging them while they're on the journey to healing, both through the CARES unit and our victim service unit, which is about 48 victim advocates. We provide crisis support in the community. We also provide crisis support through the criminal justice process. As we think about victim services, we have to be reminded that crisis happens even through the process. At every part of the work that we do with victims and survivors, there are points of crisis at every single step. We are there to support families in all of those through these processes. We also inform victims of their rights, which is important. They need to know that they actually have rights and that we adhere to those rights in all areas of our service delivery. We also need to address the individual trauma experiences of every victim, family, co-victim that we come in contact with. We collaborate with our grassroots and our neighborhood-based comprehensive victim service providers, all of which many of them are standing with us today. We also provide collaboration. We collaborate with our federal and state and local government, academia, medical, behavioral health, intervention and prevention, and other disciplines that support victims' rights and services. Our goal of meeting specific needs of victims and individuals. We want to make sure that we are looking at people as individuals. They're right. There are no cookie cutter here. Every person's journey is their individual journey, and we want to ensure that we are supporting them through that journey. We provide assistance with Victims' Compensation Assistance Program, which we call VCAP, restitution, victim impact statements, and yes, relocation. This week, we're really excited about the events, of course, all of the events that you've heard already, but we are certainly one. Here today is a big event for all of us standing here. Just being here to be able to present our programs to the media, this is our first event, and we thank the DA for allowing us all to participate in this press conference today. On Tuesday, April 26th, our DA is going to do something special. He's going to actually go on a crisis response, and we're really excited to have him to join us on our crisis response through our CARES unit and our victim service unit. On Wednesday, April 27th, we get the opportunity to recognize some of our staff at the District Attorney's Office. Some of our staff have been providing exemplary services and support to victims and witnesses behind the scenes. These are the people that are not in the front, the people that are doing the work behind the scenes. So we're very excited to acknowledge them on Wednesday between 3 and 5 o'clock at the District Attorney's Office, and I get the opportunity to announce who they are. Mary Doyle, who's a victim witness coordinator for the District Attorney's Office. Yvonne Nelson, who is here with us today, our crisis response lead for CARES. We're very excited to have her, and we're excited. Christian Wynn, who's an assistant district attorney. Helen Park, also assistant district attorney. Marielle De La Cruz, who's a senior research and policy associate. And Heather Piazza, who works on our finance. We can't get anything done without Heather because we need money. So in order for us to do some of the things that we are able to do and help us manage our grants, we're very excited about the lineup of the awardees. But again, I want to say that victims' rights and victim services, we are all here because we have passion, we have purpose, and we have professionalism. And we make sure that we are able to support all of those who we're able to come in contact with. Because why? We care. We care. We care. Thank you so much.
That was great. Thank you to everyone for your comments, which were totally on point. Thank you to Yvonne Nelson. I neglected to point you out. Thank you for everything that you do. I am truly looking forward to going on a crisis response tomorrow. I work hard every day, but it's going to be hard work. But I look forward to it because this work is that important. Are there any questions for any of these wonderful people? Yes, please.
I have a couple of questions. One for you, since you're standing there.
Sure.
Regarding 19-year-old Sian Hammond, that particular shooting, what's the latest on that?
I do not have an update as of right now, but what I can do, because our chief of homicide is not with us right now, but what we can do is try to get back to you immediately after the conference.
And also you mentioned that there were 2 arrests in the particular shooting over the weekend, but they weren't the actual shooters. Are there any leads on the actual shooters as of yet?
So the 2 people who were arrested did shoot. They did not shoot the man who was killed. They appear to have been firing at the person who killed their companion. That investigation is ongoing, and as is often the case, I can't get into too many details without potentially compromising it, but we hope to have more information about that investigation soon. And you had a question for someone else, too?
For the panel, anyone on the panel can answer this question. You know, I'm just thinking about the fact that, you know, the shooters are getting younger and the victims are getting younger. And so we have kids who are in school mourning the deaths of their friends, and they're sometimes witnessing these shootings. What's being done as far as working with the schools and working with the kids in these schools to help them out in terms of, you know, grieving and, you know, like you said, hurt people. We're talking about young people witnessing these things and experiencing that. Anybody can address.
So I can tell you on behalf of our office, and there are several people here who I think can answer this question, and I hope you will. But on behalf of our office, we have actually been in these schools very steadily since the beginning of the prior administration, especially when there is a shooting of a student in that school. We go in and we spend time with the students who are there to try to help address the trauma and so on. G. Lamar Stewart, whose name was announced as an award recipient, but is also our chief of community outreach and a Philadelphia police officer and a pastor, so he does a lot of stuff, is here, and he may be able to shed some light on what the DA's office does in terms of going into those schools. But let me step aside, because I know there are other people here who may have comments as well.
Thank you. Always the hoops, always the hoops. The Anti-Violence Partnership of Philadelphia, we partner with over 40 schools throughout the city. We do provide individual and group therapy to the students. So when there is a crisis response, they will reach out to AVP, and we will actually go to the school. We also provide psychoeducational support to school administrators. We have unfortunately seen an increase in these requests in the past year. Other things that we're trying to do, we're really trying to destigmatize mental health. We're trying to make it more accessible, especially to youth of color. So one of the things that we started piloting, and we're really excited to start investing a little bit more in, we're providing therapy over video games. We're trying to meet the youth where they're at and trying to understand what do they need in order for us to be much more accessible to them. But as far as providing support both to students and then to administrators, that's something that our agency does. Thank you. Yeah, Natasha Daniela Jalima McGlynn. Thank you.
G. Lamar Stewart, Chief of the DAO's Community Engagement Unit. So since the beginning of DA Krasner's administration, we have partnered with around 14 schools citywide. Some of those schools, we're being very intentional to make sure that we have a few schools in every police division, so we're geographically situated throughout the city. Some of those schools include mathematics, civics, and sciences, Dobbins High School, Gratz High School, Mary McLeod Bethune School, just to name a few, Abby Anderson, which is right around the corner here, Principal Lorena Tolson. And so we spend about 90 minutes in each of those schools during our time there, developing relationships with young people before an incident takes place. And so because that relationship is there, when there is an incident, unfortunately, there has been a number of incidents in many of these schools. When I think about mathematics, civics, and sciences by itself, they've lost about 7 students to gun violence over the last several years. And so as the DA mentioned a moment ago, in partnership with our victim service advocates and other trauma care professionals, we're able to bring immediate response in trauma care through our partners to those young people, but also to their families, to the school community at large, to make sure that we're helping them with the trauma associated with that. Many of our conversations through our workshops and seminars with those young people deal with conflict resolution, deal with ways to work out disputes. As we know, many of these violent acts and gun violence start off of just beef and helping them to kind of think about resolving their conflicts. And so we believe that prevention really starts with young people, and we're really committed to building those relationships. Lastly, I'll mention beyond just the schools, last summer our unit as well as some other external partners, both faith-based, some of the former juvenile lifers, and other advocates in the community. We spent 31 days on the streets of Philadelphia, on street corners, engaging with youth and young adults who are in the streets as well. So some of our work is prevention, some of it is intervention, and some of it is violence interruption, trying to connect those young people and young adults with opportunities and resources before they find themselves, unfortunately, coming into the system or, in a worst case situation, being impacted by gun violence itself.
Is there anyone else who'd like to comment on that? So let me also say this, if I may, the importance of starting that relationship before you have a crisis, the importance of treating young people like they matter, makes it possible to reach them when they have a crisis. And this is part of the reason that we have been so strong in our emphasis of prevention when it comes to youth, and prevention when it comes to youth as you move into the warm months, when historically you have the most crime. There was a wonderful event that occurred this weekend that the media has not covered. I don't know why, but that wonderful event was what they call a ride out. It was literally hundreds of young people from Philadelphia, overwhelmingly, mostly in their teens, doing what urban cyclists are doing now, which is popping wheelies and riding with one foot on the seat of the bike and one foot on the handlebars. These young people, I could say kids, but they're not all under age 18, rode about 9 miles. They had a very positive and constructive gathering before and after. They did all this, and as they went through the neighborhoods, people were chanting the phrase of the event. The phrase of the event was, bikes up, guns down. It was specifically an anti-violence event. Neighbors standing on their porches, chanting this, saying, this is what we need, taking videos of these kids performing these amazing tricks. That is what happened, you know, and I know it because I was there. I was riding at the back of the thing. I'm not as fast as they are, and I don't do wheelies, but I was there and I was riding with them. This is crime prevention. This is prevention of the next victimization. This is supporting young people, showing them something other than gun violence as a physical outlet, as a way they can compete. They can be physical, but they can be constructive. And I would love to see the media cover that. I would love to see it. In fact, I know where you can get the video, if the media should want it. I mean, people like to watch America's Home Videos and see people fall over stuff. These are kids riding on the handlebars of the bikes. I mean, it's pretty fun to watch. So, you know, that is a big part of this too. This big part of this is the close connection that everybody standing behind me has with families, and has with community, and has with children, because that is how we actually get something done. Are there any other questions? There being no other questions, thank you all for attending. We truly appreciate it. All right. Another job well done.
I need that back.